the key to everything is not looking at the reality as we usually perceive it, but to flip it over and make it into the reverse. This is the key to understanding, genuine understanding, as opposed to conditioned understanding, or the type of understanding that we're given, which reflects how the thinking mind works, but which doesn't reflect how nature works, which is a point that Gregory Bateson makes, that there's this big difficulty, this really big difficulty, a mismatch between our thinking about the world and how the world actually is. And this is not a difficulty that can be resolved, because no matter what we do, this mismatch is going to be as huge as ever. It's always going to be an abyss. There's never going to be a bridge between the two. We spend all our time building bridges, and longer and longer and longer, and they're kind of going out over the abyss, hoping to connect with something on the other side. But they never do, because bridge building isn't going to work. It never does work. Accumulation is never going to work. Laying a foundation and then putting row after row of bricks on top of each other to create some kind of positive knowledge structure, it's never going to work. All we're doing is extending our ignorance. We started off with false assumptions, and we're building on those false assumptions. And we keep thinking that it's not the assumptions are false, but what we do with them. So we think, well, I'll go back to my old assumptions and try it again. Fiddle about with them in some kind of a way. Which is exactly reminiscent of Einstein's quote about the demonstration, whatever he says, the demonstration of the definition of insanity is to keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again, hoping that it's going to work out differently sometime, as a result of our great faith in our basic assumptions. So, in order to get anywhere at all, it's no good extending what we think we know. We have to flip it all over and see what it looks like then. And the difficulty with this is that's too big of a thing. We can rejig things in accordance with our basic framework and play about with it and do this. We're good at that, kind of messing around within the parameters that we've been given, but we're no good at dropping the parameters. It's kind of too bold a move. And never mind flipping everything over entirely and turning everything on its head to see what things look like then. That's too major, it's too radical. It's far too radical. And we're right in one sense to be wary of it. Because if we do this, if we do flip everything over, we're going to have to do a lot of work. It's going to be difficult because we have to say goodbye to what we thought was real and who we thought we were, and we're going to have to start from scratch, and that's going to be a lot of work. Accumulation on a basis that's already given is a kind of a work, but it's kind of like a work which is kind of nice in a way. It's kind of like you know what to do and you just keep on doing it and doing it. It's kind of like OCD work. There's a satisfaction, or there can be a satisfaction in it, but it's entirely pointless, entirely futile. It is. It partakes in the energy of obsessiveness. Obsessiveness is a kind of driven, compulsive thing which we have to do, but which, if we were to step back and look at it, would show itself to be pointless. We're not doing anything. We're engaged in futile activity. but we can't stop being engaged in it because of the immense compulsivity of it. And that's kind of like the thinking mind all over. It's just that when we get to that zone which we actually can see to be proper obsessiveness, then we can see that. We can see it more clearly. But all of thought is like that. All of thought is a form of OCD, really. So my point was, before I drifted off, that it's too big a thing, and it's too big an upset to flip everything over. But going back to the last instalment, which was kind of about the idea that trying, striving, straining is really a form of pretending. It's a form of make-believing. So I try really, really, really hard. I'm pretending really, really, really hard. And pretending is a better word because trying sounds good. Try again. Maybe one day you'll succeed. Or we might even think, well, I will succeed if I keep on trying. That's what I need to do. But then, if I was to rephrase that and say, pretend again, because one day if you keep on pretending, what you're pretending is going to turn out to be real. That doesn't sound quite so, doesn't sound like very sound, it doesn't sound like a sound advice really, does it? Keep on pretending. Eventually, by the sheer force of your pretending, the amount of immense energy and time you've put into it, you'll be rewarded for your pretending and it'll all become real. And that doesn't sound very plausible really, does it? But that's what we're doing. We're kind of never giving up on the pretending. Now, this idea of pretending equals trying, or trying equals pretending, it makes a lot of sense. It makes perfect sense when we flip everything over. When we don't flip everything over, it doesn't make any sense at all. So our regular standard way of seeing things is to see trying as the key to everything. If you don't try, you're a loser. You've got to try. And not only that, you've got to try in that very special, competent way that makes your trying successful. That's kind of a formula that goes for everything. We're fixated on that formula. We don't have any other formula, so we keep on using it over and over again. Trying is the answer. Straining is the answer. So when we come across someone who's trying and straining and they haven't achieved, we're just saying, well, look, buddy, you're doing it all wrong, or you're not trying right. You have to try some more. So because we can't flip it over, we can't see that actually the trying is what's taking you away. The more you try, the further away from it you go. Which, from a psychological, once we start seeing things in a psychological sense, to do with, say, peace of mind, peacefulness, a sense of peacefulness. Okay, I'm trying to have a peaceful mind, but it's not working. So our paradigm will say, try harder, you lazy git. Try harder. But if we happen to have a bit of awareness around that, i.e. if we're not completely dumb and mechanical like machines, which we are, but we have the other extra ingredient potentially there of being actually conscious, unlike machines, which can only obey rules or programming, then we can say, hey, yeah, that makes sense, because trying isn't peaceful. So how can having buckets and buckets and lorries of trying end up in peace? The more you try, the less peaceful it's going to be. So we can see it's not a peculiar thing to say at all. The answer is not to try. For God's sake, you're messing it up with your stupid trying, you idiot. Taking all that responsibility on yourself and out of hubris, thinking, Yes, if I can try, I can be a hero, and if I can try hard enough to be a hero, then I'll make it happen. That's just the ego overrating itself, thinking it has a bigger part to play than it actually does. So we could ask at this point, well, what part does the ego have to play? And the answer is it doesn't have any part, it's irrelevant. And the better we are at saying that it doesn't have a part to play and it isn't, its input isn't going to help anything, the better off we will be. We will stop getting in our own way. So when people say, oh, just step out of your own way, get out of your own way, which is a great little, it's a great thing to see, that actually I'm in my own way, just get out of my way. This is it. This is the ego, the executive, rational ego, the little decider, the little chooser, the little guy inside of our head who's calling all the shots and steering the steering wheel and all that kind of stuff. That's the ego, and that's the ego. When it's out of the way, stuff works fine because there's no one trying. There's no trying. Nature doesn't try. Does nature strain to do the stuff that nature does? So, nature doesn't strain at all. It's no effort. Nature's just being what nature is, doing what nature does. And we're nature too. So it's the same is true for us. It is said that the quality of mercy is not strained. In other words, I don't have to force myself to be merciful and always be there on the point of being totally non-merciful or merciless, like Ming the Merciless. It's not like I'm trying to keep myself being merciful, but there's an awful force trying to, I'm going against the grain, really. Mercy comes completely freely, completely without reservation. It just comes gushing out like a stream gushing out of a rock, or gushing out of wherever streams gush out of. That's what it's like. There's no straining. I don't have to read a handbook on how to be merciful. I don't have to practice being merciful. I don't have to watch a YouTube tutorial on it and just figure out I do this, and then the output will be I'm being merciful. That's not being merciful. That's putting on a mechanical imitation of being merciful. And just to change the word from mercy, because you might think, well, that's not particularly relevant. I don't have to go around being merciful that much. That's, what's that about? Patience. Patience is exactly the same thing. By gritting my teeth and straining, I can't be merciful. And if I'm not patient, if I'm totally impatient, giving out to myself and trying harder, that's just a further manifestation of impatience. When patience comes, it's got no limits. It's got no agenda. It's got no, I'm going to be patient until, or I'm going to be patient for the next 10 minutes. And if you don't sort yourself out then, I'm going to blow a gasket. That's not patience. That's just tightening a lid on a pressure cooker, that's all. And for a while we won't see the pressure because the lid's on real tight, but we'll see that pressure later. Sooner or later, we'll see the pressure. So all of this is just to kind of give a flavour how actually this idea that our understanding of trying is back to front, because trying in the mental health sphere is the cause of all our woes, not the solution. Now this is fantastic, really, because you could travel around the world, or travel around most of the world anyway, and notice or take note of what goes on in mental health care settings. And it's all about the trying. It is all about the trying. Maybe refined special types of trying. Maybe sometimes the trying is disguised as something else. So in compassion-focused therapy, that doesn't sound like a trying type of thing, but when you kind of go into it a bit, we end up in this same situation where the prescribed thing to be is empathic, So of course I'm going to try to be empathic, and the more I try to be empathic, the less empathic I'm going to be, because that's the trying is the thing that's buggering it all up. Get rid of the trying. Now we might think, oh, it's too simple. That's just a gimmick. How can something as simple as just not trying or giving up the trying positively impact our mental health? Even though that expression is pretty dire, but that's the kind of language you use. But it isn't simple to get better at not trying, not straining so hard. Is paradoxically, or maybe it isn't paradoxically, but in a way maybe you could say it's paradoxical, the hardest thing to do. Trying sounds hard. I'm trying to drag a big huge boulder up a hill. I'm trying, and everyone look at me and they say, like Sisyphus, isn't it? Oh, look at him trying. Isn't that great? I mean, maybe it isn't great. Maybe they think I'm a total head case, but they know I'm trying and they know it's work. So we would say trying equals work, and if the amount of effort I put into it, the amount of work I put into it is enough, I'll achieve the outcome. Like I keep on repeating myself and saying that's the kind of paradigm that we're working under. But in a way, and in a very important way, trying is not work. It's not work because we're avoiding the main work. We're avoiding the real work. So just like if I've got an assignment to hand in and I'm desperately trying to find tasks that are important to do so I don't have to think about my assignment, whether it's doing the washing up or doing the laundry or washing out all the cupboards or cleaning the tiles with a toothbrush, whatever the hell it is, even though you could say, well, getting down on your hands and knees and cleaning all the tiles in the kitchen with a toothbrush is work, it ain't really work. It's easy. It's easy because it's the easy option compared to what I really don't want to do or what I really don't want to think about. So with trying, what I don't have to do is think about what I'm doing, because thinking about why I am doing it. So the why, the big existential why, where I actually have to think about things. I don't mean rationally think about things, but in that expression where I actually have to think about things myself. That's the work. My poor old brain doesn't like that. It moans and groans and it'll say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to think about things for myself. Give me something to do that someone else has already sussed out. So when someone else gives us something else to do, when some external authority tells us, do this, it's like, yeah, then all I have to do is try to do it. I don't have to think. I can just be a nice machine. Please, just let me be a machine and just tell me everything and let me just please do it. Do you know, like the way it is with machines. That's how it is with machines, of course. Please let me be a machine. It's too hard work to be a human. So trying is an avoidance of the big question mark, because trying is the how, it's the technicality, it's the procedures, it's all the stuff we love, that oh yeah, do it this way, oh that way is better, oh do it this way, this guaranteed, it works for 9 out of 10 people, it's great, just follow this simple, this simple routine, this simple ritual, whatever the hell bullshit, and we've all heard it a billion times. This bullshit oozes out of everywhere, out of the internet. We've always got these little things, little recipes, little things, and they're all avoidance of actually seeing stuff for ourselves. That's all avoidance. It's all non-work, but it's non-work disguised as work, so we don't know we're avoiding. So trying is avoiding, and the fantasy that one day our trying will bring us huge dividends and will bring about, well, basically it's like we'll go to heaven and everything will be great if only we try hard enough. It ain't bloody true though, because trying is futile. It's an avoidance. It's no good saying, well, if I avoid enough then everything will work out okay, because that's kind of the wrong way around, really, because the more I avoid, the more bigger the problems I have waiting for me at the end of the day. Really, really big. Those problems are going to get so big, as we all know. So, trying is the avoidance. And not trying is the thing that we're avoiding. So on lots of levels, not trying is really, really hard. Not trying, which is the same as the Taoist not doing, is only humans can do it. Machines can't do it. We want to carry on being machines, yet not suffer from all the frustration and pain and misery and all that kind of shit that comes from being a machine, because we are machines. So if we were machines, then we'd just go on being machines and that's fine. But we're not machines. We're pretending to be machines in order to escape responsibility or seeing reality for ourselves. And because of that, it generates bucket loads of suffering, which will eventually force us to give up all this bullshit and think, okay, the avoidance, as always, just gives me more suffering, so it becomes eventually something inside me just goes, sees sense, and I stop avoiding. But that could take an awful long time, and we can be very, very, we are always very, very persistent. We'll push it to the last. We'll take it as far as we can possibly take it. Avoidance, that is. And the other thing is, the other way of looking at why not trying isn't quite as simple as we might naively think. But how the hell do we go about not trying? Can you imagine trying to not try? How do you do that? How do you go about that? Because every single thing we do is trying. Every single thing. We don't know how to do anything else. It's like saying we don't know how to do anything else but pretend. It's exactly the same thing. If all I know to do is pretend, that's all I know how to do, then when I realise that this pretending business is getting me in a lot of trouble and it's going in a very bad direction, it's taking to me a place that I'm not going to thank myself for later on, then I could say, okay, what am I'll do? I want to do something about it because the pretending is bad. But all I can do is pretend not to be pretending. And then when I manage to successfully pretend not to be pretending, I'll say, yeah, I'm getting somewhere, because it kind of feels, I'm pretending and it's working because I think what's I'm pretending is happening actually really is happening. So then you get this kind of this false sense of security. I'll be patting myself on the back and saying, yeah, the pretending's working. But it's working against me, of course. That's the whole point. The pretending is working against me. And yet all I know how to do is to pretend. So this is very, it's tricky. It's not as easy as we might think at all.